Hello and welcome to the Denver Homes Market Report. This is Ricky Schoonover with 8Z Real Estate, and you are tuned into the Denver Homes Market Report podcast. This is our second episode of season 6, so thank you very much for tuning in. You can see we're in the van again this month. I like doing the podcast in the van because I kind of speak loud, and I don't have to worry about any of my colleagues if I'm in the office or elsewhere, or in one of my listings where it's kind of echoey and that kind of stuff. So I really like the acoustics of the van. I love doing the podcast here. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Last month we talked about, why you would hire Ricky Schoonover. Like there's 28,000 or so active realtors in Colorado. About 80% of the business is done by about 20% of the agents. So there you are as a seller out there, and you're interviewing 3 or 4 agents, and you're talking to me and you're like, okay, Ricky, what sets you apart? Why do I want to hire you? Why don't I hire this person or that person? So what do you bring to the table? So we kind of focused on that last month with what I would bring to a seller. So this month, we're going to talk a little bit about what Ricky Schoonover brings to you as a buyer. Why do you want to hire Ricky Schoonover instead of another agent? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we get to that, I want to give a quick shout out to 1941 Wabash Street here in Denver. It's my newest listing. Comes live on Friday morning. We have open house this weekend on Saturday, the 3rd and the 4th from 11 till 2 p.m. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Got a nice big 2-car garage, alley access. It's got a newer washer and dryer, LG stackable washer and dryer in there, stainless steel appliances. Just a really, really nice mid-century, not mid-century modern, but mid-century ranch-style home. So you have to check that out. Just look that up. Go to denverhomesmarket.com, and then in the upper left corner there, hit featured listings, and you'll see that 1941 Wabash. So check that out and come see me over the weekend. All right, so why do you hire Ricky Schoonover as your buyer's agent? You're interviewing a couple different agents, and everyone knows about probably 12 agents on average. So you find those 3 or 4 that and you want to interview them. Why do you hire Ricky Schoonover over any other agent? And we talked about that with the sellers last month. So this month we're going to talk about buyers. And one of the first things that come to mind is experience. Bottom line, I'm a better agent today than I was back when I got licensed in 2003, 4, 5. I got licensed in 2003. I've seen a lot more scenarios. I've spoken to all my colleagues over the years. I've seen different things. I've dealt with different issues, whether it been, representing sellers or representing buyers, and seeing how that works. And so just a real world example. I have sellers right now. We got an inspection objection the other day. And I won't bring up the specifics on that particular deal, but let's just say it was a furnace that was over 30 years old, and the manifold was cracked and it was leaking gas pretty good. And the inspector said, hey, I wouldn't even bother changing the manifold. Everything else in here is worn out. It needs a new furnace. It's about $8,500. My sellers are like, no, we're not going to do that. Well, I was like, if I was on the other side of this and I was representing that buyer, I would at least, since we didn't know it was leaking when we put in our offer, I would be at least asking for half. I know it's a long-term thing, right? You're going to put in a furnace. It's going to last 15, 20 years. But I would at least be trying to get half of that cost, if I was going to replace a furnace. And so my sellers are kind of rethinking that, saying, okay, because we don't want to lose the buyer, right? We don't want to lose the buyer over $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever. We'd rather keep that buyer and get them to close. So that's kind of the common sense thing there. So that's one of the things where, why do you hire Ricky Schoonover? For that sort of experience, for having these things come up in the past and knowing how to deal with them. So we talk about experience. Then we talk about my team. I have a very powerful team behind me. I have a listing manager that helps me with all the paperwork behind the scenes. I've got a manager that helps me do all the inputs into the MLS. And so those things help your transaction move smoother. So having a powerful team behind me helps you as my buyer as well. And then community involvement. You always want to hire someone that's kind of knows what's going on in the community. I volunteer. I live in La Alma Lincoln Park, or most of you do. And I volunteer on the Arts District on Santa Fe. I collect art myself. All of you know that. And it's really important to hire someone that you kind of connect with, and that they know what's going on in the community. They know pillars of the community and stakeholders in the community and that kind of thing. So it's really important as far as that aspect, and not everyone can bring that to the table. And then hands-on. I'm hands-on with you with my buyers. I really am. All the way from our initial consultation, where we're talking about clarity and control and confidence, right? Our 3 C's. So that clarity is that I control the process, and I know the process going through, and then you as the buyer, you make all the decisions, okay? And then what that does is we have clarity, control, and that's going to bring us confidence, right? So we have that synergistic relationship, and not all realtors understand that synergistic relationship and can bring that to the table. So that's another reason why you might want to hire Ricky Schoonover instead of somebody else. And then another big thing I do is coaching. Right? Just like this furnace, right? Even though it wasn't really a furnace that we were talking about, even like this furnace, working with you as a buyer and trying to negotiate as much as we can from that seller and pointing out like, hey, we didn't know that the furnace was 30 years old when we put the offer in. We didn't know that the manifold was cracked and was leaking gas and could cause a fire. We didn't know those things when we put our offer. So please have some understanding on our side. And we also understand that this is a piece of equipment that once it's changed out, it's going to last 15, 20, 30 years. So we also have some understanding with that. So we may not be a full replacement at $8,400, but we're also not going to purchase the property and then knowing that we have to shell out $8,400. In addition to that, when you get a home warranty, if it's an existing issue and the home warranty folks know it was an existing issue, it's not covered. So that's another thing. I had the seller on one deal where they're like, well, they could just get a home warranty and it would be covered. Well, no, if it's an existing issue, it's not covered. So if they buy it and then tomorrow it breaks, that's a different story. But in this case, it's already in the inspection report. We know the manifold is cracked. We know it's leaking pretty good, and we know it needs to be replaced. So let's just be adults in the room and get that figured out. So being that coach, right? That's a good thing to bring to the table. And then the other one is psychology. So much of what we do in real estate is the mindset, right? Like if you're a buyer and you're like, well, I don't want to buy because of interest rates. I don't want to buy because of this. There's always going to be a reason not to buy real estate. That's bottom line. There's always going to be something that you can point to. I don't want to be in the bidding wars. I don't want to wait in line at the open houses because there's too many people. I don't want to pay the high prices. I don't want the interest rate at 5%, 6%, 7%, whatever it is. Those type of things. There's always going to be a reason to say no. But then there's also going to be a reason to say yes. So you have to kind of look at you and your situation and decide when the right time to buy real estate is the right time for you, and not worry so much about when's the right time for everybody else. Because when it's the right time for everybody else, guess what? That's when you have the bidding wars. That's when you have the lines out the door waiting to get into the open houses. That's when you have, just that first weekend and they've got multiple offers by Monday. And it's kind of like a lottery pick to find out who's going to win the deal. So that's no fun either. You kind of want a balanced market. And we're sort of there now. It's maybe even leaned a little bit more towards buyers at this point. But you want more of a balanced market where you've got, 3 to 4 months of inventory. You've got, maybe 60 days on market, 75 days on market. You have a little time to make your decisions on what home you're going to buy and really make sure it's the right home for you. So there's a balance, right? There's always a balance with real estate. You don't want it on one extreme. You don't want it on the other extreme. Somewhere in the middle is the right time for you. All right, so having that psychologist hat on, put on my psychology hat, and helping you kind of decide when's the right time for you, that's a big part of what I do, whether I'm working with sellers or buyers. And then the other thing is, what should I offer on this home? What's that home worth? So we have an interesting way to come up with value, and it's kind of a guess, right? We pull up the MLS and we look at what's on the market currently. We look at and around that area. We look at what's sold recently. We look at those and the condition of those. And then we look at what's pending, like what's getting ready to close and what all those prices were. And then we come up with a sort of formula or an idea of, okay, based on everything we see here, this is what this home's probably going to sell for and the current market conditions and that kind of thing. So, what is this home? What should I write my offer for? That experience, that only comes with experience. So if you're looking for a reason to hire Ricky Schoonover, he's been doing it for 20-something years. I know the neighborhoods. I can watch the trends and really be able to take that information and digest that information and find out where buyers are at and where your competition probably is and put in the best offer to give you the chance of winning that property, but also not overpaying. Because no one wants to overpay. All right. So what else do we do? The Denver Homes Market Report, the podcast, right? We do the podcast. That's a great way for me to reach out to sellers. I just gave you a pitch for 1941 Wabash Street there in Denver. And so me being on the podcast, I have about, 1,500 subscribers and thousands of minutes of listening. And each one of my podcasts have hundreds of views. So all that exposure helps you as the buyer. Sellers reaching out to me, colleagues reaching out to me. Hey, I've got this home for sale. I've got this one off market for sale. I will be able to find properties for you as a buyer that other realtors just don't have access to. And that's just bottom line. We have a private listing network. A lot of our listings go in there before they go to the MLS. I'll be able to bring those listings to you before they are public even. So that's another reason why you hire Ricky Schoonover, is to come to you with listings that nobody else has on the market, or they're just not on the market yet, type of thing. So that's another reason. And then we talk about my relationship with the University of Colorado. I am the housing and relocation specialist for the University of Colorado. So what that means is, first of all, sellers call me because they're getting ready to, they picked up a new position at another school and they're getting ready to move. So I may know of listings that are coming up that, hey, I don't transfer till the fall, but I'll be selling my property. Here's a little information about it. So I might have some access to some properties that I know are coming down the line that aren't on the market yet. So that's another reason why buyers might flock to me and check with me and see what I might have to offer. And then my negotiating skills. I don't talk about this much, but I do talk about being in the Navy a lot. But I actually went to a school for negotiating. And I won't really get into the schools that much. You can look up SERE, Navy School, and you'll learn all about it. But I probably have a little more insight on negotiating than a lot of other realtors, probably most other realtors actually. So my negotiating skills are unique, and it is a bit of a, resist to your utmost, but you do want to give in when you have to so you don't lose the deal. And so having some negotiating skills and knowing how to use that fine line is a really superpower for me. So that might be another reason. And then, getting you to the closing table. Real estate has a lot of emotion. Whether you're on the seller side, you dig in your heels, or on the buyer side, you dig in your heels. There's a lot of emotion that goes on. And sometimes it's warranted, and sometimes my job is to talk you through and say, look back at the market and say, what else is out there? We've looked at these properties or those properties, and what else is out there that you think is going to be better than this one? Or what do you think's around the corner that's going to be better than this one? We've talked about why this home is the right one for you, and really negotiating that with the seller and also with my buyers, of keeping that deal together to get you to the closing table. And then beyond the closing table, right? We create friendships and clients for life. That's really what the 8Z mantra is. We have our 8Z collective, which is a party that gifts that we give out, and then a party that we do once a year. We all get together and we stay in contact with our clients and find out how you guys are doing. And so building those relationships is another thing that's unique to me and AZ as well. So those are all sort of things that I can bring to the table that not all realtors can, whether it's negotiating skills, experience, a little psychology, all those sort of things. Being your coach. I was a soccer coach when I was younger too. It's kind of fun. But anyway, bringing all those elements to the table and be able to get you from your initial consultation to going out and searching homes, to finding the right home, then crafting the proper offer to make sure you're not overpaying, right? Looking at all the comps before we make that offer, and then negotiating that offer all the way through to the closing table and beyond. Those are the reasons that you want to hire me as your realtor, as a buyer's agent. The game has changed a little bit with real estate. Sellers still really respect having a buyer out there that's being guided by a professional. No one wants to be working with someone that doesn't have a professional guiding them, because the littlest thing can set them off, and maybe it's warranted, maybe it's not. But if you don't have somebody on the other side with some experience guiding that buyer as the seller, it can be really frustrating, and the deals just don't get to the closing table. They just don't. For whatever reason, they just blow up. So when you have a professional guiding the buyer, you have a professional guiding the seller, we can keep that even keel and keep everybody happy and get you to the price and terms where the seller is happy with selling and the buyer is happy with buying. And that's really the bottom line. So anyway, we're going to wrap this podcast up. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Ricky Schoonover, 8Z Real Estate, and you have been listening to the Denver Homes Market Report. Tune in next month, first Thursday of every month. We try to come out and check out next month's podcast. All right, take care.